What's up, everyone? Today we are going to talk about this super hard test 2 question in Cambridge IELTS 17. Let's look at the question first. Nowadays, a growing number of people with health problems are trying alternative medicines and treatments instead of visiting their usual doctor. Do you think this is a positive or a negative development? I think this question is hard because we are unfamiliar with the topic. We don't know much about alternative medicines and treatments. In this case, the best advice I can give you is to read the question very carefully and identify all the keywords in the question. Does it really that hard and leave you with nothing to write about? Let's see. Obviously, the most important key phrase is alternative medicines and treatments. Please be very careful with this phrase. It not only says medicines, but also says treatments. They are two different things. Alternative treatments are treatments like acupuncture and aromatherapy, which don't involve medicine. If the question only wanted you to talk about alternative treatments, you would have just used alternative treatments. The reason that medicines are mentioned separately is to make it clear that the question is not only about alternative treatments, but it is also about alternative medicines like herbal remedies. That is to say, in our essay, we need to discuss both alternative treatments and alternative medicines. The question also mentions visiting their usual doctor. That is to say, when developing our paragraphs, we can talk about not only alternative medicines and treatments, but also conventional treatments. We can compare and contrast these two types of treatments. So we actually have enough things to talk about to write at least 250 words. Let's start with body paragraph 1. This type of question is exactly the same as agree or disagree questions. We stick to only one side. We say it's either a positive or a negative development. So my opinion is that I think this is a negative development. And one of my reasons is that many alternative medicines and treatments are not strictly regulated. This is my topic sentence. Now I will show you how to paraphrase alternative medicines and treatments. First of all, do not change it to complementary medicines and treatments. Both alternative treatments and complementary treatments refer to treatments like herbs or acupuncture that are outside of the medical mainstream. But complementary medicine is when these therapies are used along with conventional Western medicine, whereas alternative medicine is when these therapies are used instead of conventional medicine. As you can see in the question, these people do not use conventional treatment and alternative treatments at the same time. They simply replace the conventional treatments with alternative treatments. So complementary doesn't really fit the context. Secondly, do not use something like alternative methods or alternative approaches. They introduce a new noun, making it seem as though you are talking about something other than medicines and treatments. Rather than introduce a new noun, we can just use alternative as a noun. Many alternatives are not strictly regulated. You can also use non-conventional or non-mainstream medicines and treatments. So when you visit your usual doctor, what you get is mainstream or conventional medical treatments. So we can call their alternatives non-conventional or non-mainstream medicines and treatments. And when developing this topic sentence, I will mainly use this approach. I will talk about both alternative medicines and alternative treatments. Medicines first. I will first explain why they are not strictly regulated. This is because they are not classified as drugs. In most countries, alternative medicines are not classified as drugs. And then I will go on to talk about the negative consequences of poor regulation, and are therefore not subjected to the same regulations in terms of efficacy or marketing claims. Now I'm going to use an example to support the explanations. Examples need to be specific. Ask yourself, what alternative medicines do I know? Don't say that you know nothing about them. At least you should know herbs. You should know herbs as long as you are an agent. So I'm going to use herbal remedies as an example. This can be seen in herbal remedies which falsely claim to have special ingredients that affect effectiveness when there is no evidence of this. So in the explanations, I mentioned the efficacy and the marketing claims. Please note how I used the special ingredients to support the efficacy and the marketing claims mentioned in the explanations. In the example, you could also say that they claim to be 100% natural, but they aren't. So far we've only talked about alternative medicines. We also need to talk about alternative treatments. But this doesn't mean we should introduce a new topic in this paragraph. Remember, a key factor in scoring a 7 or higher on the writing test is to make sure that each paragraph has only one main topic. So when discussing alternative treatments, we should still be focusing on poor regulation. The same can be said for alternative therapies. Many of these therapies are not conducted by registered practitioners who are permitted to work by a regulatory board. As a result, there is nothing to stop unethical or even unsafe practice from taking place. As you can see, by talking about both alternative medicines and alternative treatments, I was able to double the length of the paragraph. Besides, if you talk about only one of them, you will lose marks on task response because you are not answering all parts of the question. This paragraph is done. Now let's move on to body paragraph 2, in which I will talk about the second reason why I think the increased use of alternative medicines and treatments is a negative development. Topic sentence. Non-conventional medical treatments would not be as useful in emergency situations. As I mentioned earlier in the video, visiting their usual doctor is also a key term in the question. So when developing this topic sentence, I will talk about not only alternative treatments, but also conventional treatments. They take time to work, whereas conventional treatments are developed to take effect fast. I contrasted conventional treatments with their alternatives. Now I will continue to expand this idea. If people with conditions or symptoms that need to be relieved right away opt for alternative therapies, they might miss the window of opportunity to cure their diseases. A window of opportunity is a period of time during which some action can be taken that will achieve a desired outcome. Now, I will give an example. So in the explanations, I mentioned the people with conditions that need to be relieved right away. In the example, we can make it specific by talking about one particular condition that needs treatment immediately. I don't know many medical terms, but at least I know cancer and a tumor, so I will just use them as an example. Consider patients who require tumor removal as soon as possible. If they delay surgery in the hopes that a non-mainstream treatment would work, the tumor might grow and spread to other parts of their bodies. As you can see, by contrasting conventional treatments with their alternatives, I was able to avoid repeating myself. I mean, when I have nothing to say, I tend to go back and forth using different words to say the same thing again and again. But I managed to avoid this mistake simply by reading the question carefully and identifying all the keywords in the question. Now, the introductory paragraph. Let's first paraphrase the question statement. So basically, the original says doing A instead of doing B. We can instead say choose A over B. More and more people with health issues are now choosing alternative medicines and therapies over conventional treatment recommended by their practitioners. Here, I use the treatment uncountably. It can be either countable or uncountable. Next, I will give my opinion. I believe this is a negative development. And then I will add the main topics of the two body paragraphs. As you can see, the main topic of the first body paragraph is that many alternatives are not strictly regulated. In the introduction, I will use different wording to say it again. Many alternatives are not held to the same standards as mainstream treatments. Now let's add the main topic of the second body paragraph. Non-conventional medical treatments would not be as useful in emergency situations and are often less useful in emergencies. Finally, the conclusion paragraph. In this paragraph, we state again our opinion and the two main topics. In conclusion, The increased use of alternative medicines and therapies should be viewed as a negative development due to a lack of regulation and their ineffectiveness in emergency situations. This is my opinion. This is the main topic of body paragraph 1, and this is the main topic of body paragraph 2. Here's the entire essay. If I had focused on writing about only alternative medicines, I wouldn't have been able to reach the required minimal word count of 250 words. By identifying all the keywords in the question, I was able to not only address all parts of the question, but also give myself more things to write about. But be careful that this doesn't mean you should introduce a new idea in your body paragraphs. Even though I discussed a couple of things in my body paragraphs, each of the body paragraphs only has one main topic. That's all for this video. You might also be interested in other questions in Cambridge IELTS 17. Here's the playlist. Be sure to check it out. Thanks for watching. Bye!